So Carla, would you like to talk a little bit more about your own background?
Absolutely. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm in Sonoma County, California. I specialize in anxiety, depression, definitely relationships. It's just one of my favorite ways of working with people. I come from a Jungian background, so Carl Jung, and also do a lot of work with EMDR, cognitive behavioral therapy, and certainly a holistic mind, body, spirit approach with my yoga and meditation background.
Great. Can you talk a little bit more about the inspiration of the book and what you hope people get from it?
Yes, so Date Smart came from me working not only in my private practice, but in working with groups and with the press. And I was getting a lot of feedback that there was a great need for a common sense approach to dating. And I just really sensed that because people were struggling with the same types of dating patterns, basically coming from a lack of self awareness and a lack of people being respectful, so dating people who weren't respectful and not keeping agreements and all of that sort of thing. So I really wanted to create Date Smart as a way to help people take a breath, get back to some basics, and really know how to date what I call from the inside out so that you're healthy and strong so that you can be a good partner and draw a good partner to you.
I love that. And I love the book personally as well as in my work. But that's great. And I know we have a couple of questions. So, do you mind if we get started with the one that was submitted today?
Absolutely. Sure.
Great. So we had a reader write to us who asked about matchmaking and your thoughts on it. And I don't know specifically what they meant. I know also this could perhaps pertain to some algorithms on dating apps. So I guess if you could just speak to matchmaking a bit and maybe what people hope they'll get out of it and maybe ways that people can find their match organically as well, that could be great.
Okay. And so when we look at matchmaking, traditional matchmaking, when two people, matchmaker said, okay, person A will be a great match for person B. And oftentimes the family was behind that kind of dynamic, and the two would meet and were more or less forced to live happily ever after. And I do think that there is something to be said for that because a matchmaker often knows both people, knows their background, knows what, because the matchmaker wants them to be a healthy match, right? And so that would be the old school algorithm, right? Of finding somebody, finding people and saying, oh, you would be really well matched. Now, even then, when we come together with someone, I think it's also really important, whether it's an algorithm matchmaker or a person doing the matchmaking. And sometimes our families are matchmakers as well, unofficial, and they'll say, or friends, and they'll say, oh, I've met this person, you will be absolutely perfect for them. As I was actually working with someone yesterday who was telling me that the person she is dating checks every box, right? Every box that she has, but she doesn't feel like it's her right person. And so I think that that is the critical piece, even when matchmaking is involved, to really take whatever form it is, whether it's traditional or an algorithm or friends and family, to really slow down, to do your own work, your own self-reflection, so that you know what you want from the person, so that you can talk to the person and see if you meet their needs and they meet your needs, and then go from there. Because as much as we might get our boxes ticked, all the right check marks and all the right boxes, I have plenty of case studies, from clients where that was the case and they didn't live happily ever after.
That's so interesting. And I think that's something that I love about the book too, is I feel you have a real emphasis on loving yourself and getting to know yourself and what you want, perhaps sometimes before you go on a journey to find the person who's going to be the love of your life. And I love that so much because I do think growth and just reflection is such an important part of relationships. So great.
Absolutely. And just a real quick piece to tag on to that. Traditionally, you were put, centuries and centuries, you were put with someone who you may or may not have been an ideal match with. And we didn't really have a lot of choices. And now that we have more choices, there's an upside and there's a downside. The upside is we have a lot of choices and we can really, slog through life and keep looking for the right one. The downside is sometimes too many choices makes us have a difficult time. And so we don't make the best of what we have and really put in a lot of effort because we think, oh, there's someone better out there for me. So, there is an upside and a downside to having more choices. It's called the paradox of choice. So it's
That
definitely
totally makes sense, and it's interesting because I know a lot of my friends who are on dating apps will just swipe so quickly through the profiles. Yeah, it's fascinating because I think they do think they're like the perfect person is just out there, and if they swipe enough times that they'll find them. So
absolutely. And there's a study, it's a famous study, it's called the JAM studies,
mhm,
and it really pertains to human beings as well. They would put out at a supermarket like 18 jams, and then at another one, they would put 3 or 4 jams. The people who had more of a selection tended to buy less, and they tended to be more dissatisfied with their ultimate choice. And they found that it really holds true in the dating realm. When we have more choices, we always think there's something better, so we're less satisfied. So I think it's really a lot about slowing it down so that when you do make a choice, rather than just swiping left or swiping right, so that you're engaging in reflection.
right. That's super interesting. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I guess if you don't mind if we hop on to healthy EQ, if you could talk a little bit about that and what that is. And then also for the people who are here live, I would encourage you to submit questions or raise your hand if you have a question, but you can pop them into the chat or the Q&A box. So please feel free to do that and we can add those on at the end.
So, healthy EQ, it's one of my favorite topics because in our society, we really prize standard intelligence, cognitive intelligence, which is often about being good at memorizing things, right? But there's another type of intelligence called emotional intelligence. And I know many people who have really high cognitive intelligence and have very low emotional intelligence. And so for me, I think it's so important for us to realize that emotional intelligence is something we can cultivate. Whereas cognitive intelligence, we can cultivate it, but in some ways, you're born with a lot of intelligence or you're not. Whereas emotional intelligence is something we can all work on creating, and we can all really work to learn who we are and build ourselves from the inside out. And some of that starts with knowing your emotions. So, knowing your 5 key emotions, which are anger, joy, fear, sadness, and disgust. And then realizing that those emotions, once they're mixed with your brain and your history, then come out thousands and thousands of feelings, right? And so, basic pieces like that, knowing your emotions, being able to regulate your emotions, being able to communicate in healthy ways. For example, using I messages. I feel this. I feel sad. I feel hurt. And this is what I need. And that's something that a lot of us have trouble with. So, those are 2 important pieces of emotional intelligence. And I'm looking at my notes here to make sure I don't miss anything. And self control is really important. So many times we'll date someone, or we will be that person who is, it's not about not being sensitive, by the way. I think I'm a big fan of sensitivity because I think that our sensitivity allows us to really tune into other people and into ourselves. But it's about being able to feel your feelings. So, yes, I feel angry, or yes, I feel sad or scared or whatever's happening, and then being able to regulate it. And one of the ways you can do that, talk about emotional intelligence, is learning to breathe, learning to journal, learning to go for a walk if you're upset, just to self reflect. So, that's another really important piece about emotional intelligence. And then another important piece is personal motivation for self growth. And I think this is so important. We are often so focused on getting the right partner, or getting the right career, or having our bodies look absolutely, the best they can be. We forget about, to me, what's most important is this, right? This person from the inside. And so I'm a big fan of really being motivated to be the best I can be, and to help my clients and people that I work with be the best they can be. Some people, and this is a big part in the dating world, some people don't have that motivation. They just don't. And if self-growth is important for you, if you're dating someone who's all about looks or all about money or external success, and I'm not saying that they're mutually exclusive because they're not, but really match up with someone who will never be perfect. None of us will be, but somebody who's really motivated to continue growing. That is one of the most common issues in relationships where you'll have somebody who's very emotionally oriented and growth oriented, and the other person who's just checked out and has no interest in it. So that's a major hiccup. And then the last one, because well, there are many parts to emotional intelligence. But the other piece which relates to that is consistent self work. So, really slowing down and getting to know yourself, noticing what's working in your relationships, doing more of that, noticing what's not working in your relationships, and doing less of that. So, to me, that's a consistent a part of life as taking a shower or brushing your teeth. And how does this translate into the dating world? Well, when we're dating or using these skills in our relationships, really working it, then we tend to blossom. I mean, we just continue to grow. And then our mates, whether it's our best friend or our husband, wife, significant other, they also, especially if we can help each other grow.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, I love that. And I think that definitely is consistent too with like a mindset shift because growth is definitely a mindset. Like you said, it can just become part of the routine. So I know you have a lot of really great mindset shifts in this book. And we have one question that I can loop back to at the end too. But do you mind just sharing a few of your top favorite mindset shifts that you included?
Absolutely. So one of my favorite ones, I'll read it. Mindset Shift 5. Appropriate boundaries are essential. Healthy boundaries help us build safe, caring, trusting friendships that can last a lifetime. If a person in your life is not respecting your boundaries, this is a major red flag that you don't want to ignore. Cultivate healthy boundaries by striving to stand up for yourself with courage, dignity, and respect. The more you respect your own boundaries and the boundaries of others, the stronger you will feel. That's mindset shift number 5. Just such an important mindset shift.
Absolutely. I read something recently too that said anyone who resists your boundaries or doesn't respect them or is unhappy with them is probably trying just to gain something from you. So I think that setting boundaries and being able to have them accepted and respected and have someone fully support them shows you how much someone actually does love you too.
Absolutely, Kate. And I want to tag on to that because I think what happens, and this is what in Date Smart, is what I try and do in this book, is to help people realize that as you change, everything around you will change. So if you don't have healthy boundaries and you start working your boundaries and getting used to them, people who really care about you may start thinking, who is this person in front of me? This person used to just kind of be a people pleaser and do whatever I wanted. So some people need to be re-educated that wait
Right.
a second, I am finding my boundaries and this is who I am. And maybe I'm, a little late to the game, but I'm learning about boundaries and this is what they are. And
Mhm.
I ask you to please respect them. So I have a 3 strikes rule with boundaries.
Mhm.
I will
That
tell and I will tell someone, and of course, if it's a big boundary violation, it
Mhm.
may be a 1 strike, right? Depending upon, but if somebody says, let's make it an easy one, they're late. And
Mhm.
for me, being timely is important. And it's not that there was an accident or something. It's just, I'm a half hour late. Just didn't want to text you or call you. So I might say, well, I feel really disrespected when you don't tell me you're running late. So in the future, please, if you're running late, let me know and text, phone call. And then
Mhm.
they do it again. So another reminder. And they do it again. I go, I don't think you're hearing me. And if this is going to be a habit, I'm not going to be able to continue this friendship because somebody who really respects me, that's really important to me. Sometimes that gets through, but you're right. If you are that clear with people and they just don't want to respect your healthy boundaries, that is a sign of somebody just taking advantage of you. And so sometimes people are so used to the old you that when you do start showing up, then you have to reevaluate that relationship.
That makes sense. And I think for longer term relationships too, it makes sense that you grow and change and have new boundaries as time goes on. And I guess outside of dating too, with family, I'm sure that often happens as well and long term friends. So thank you for kind of showing those examples of how you can set boundaries. So, kind of bouncing off of that, I guess, if you don't mind talking about other red flags, that might be a good time to
Okay.
do it.
Okay. So that takes me to, mm, okay, I'll move to red flags, but I have another mindset shift. So I'll do
Sure.
that one later. Is that okay? Okay. I love this mindset. It's mindset shift number 9. It may be one of my favorite parts of the book. Honesty matters as much as oxygen. I've seen the pain and havoc that dishonesty can create. There's almost nothing worse than misleading a person from the start. Take the time to know yourself so that you can bring your best self to the dating world and find the most wonderful partner. Embrace honesty as if it's oxygen. Honesty isn't an option, it's a vital necessity. So, using that to launch into red flags, if you don't know what a red flag is in the dating and relationship world, all that it is a warning. Your gut is telling you that something's off, something's wrong. And so, for example, somebody might tell you something and they not might not match up with something they told you before. You go, that sounds like dishonesty to me, right? So you're thinking that in your head. So then you slow down and you might say to the person, I noticed that you said that, you used to work at so and so, but now you said you didn't work there. Was that a glitch in your memory? Why do those two stories not match up? So if the person just meets you directly and says, "Oh, I was an intern there, but I didn't get paid. That's what I meant," right? Then you go, "Oh, okay." And the red flag might get calmed, right? But if the person says, "I don't know what you're talking about, you're making things up. What's wrong with your brain?" Uh-oh, big red flag, right? So when you bring a red flag to somebody's attention, because we all get red flags. Some of them have to do with our own unresolved past. And I'm pointing back there, something that happened in the past that we haven't resolved. But sometimes it has to do with what the person's doing in the current. And sometimes it's a blend of the two. So when a red flag comes up, pay attention to it. Sometimes it makes sense to keep a journal entry like, okay, this person, there's a lot of things that are confusing here that aren't adding up. And how the person responds, this applies, everything I'm talking about really applies to every relationship in your life, not just dating, right? But dating is a really great proving ground for things. And so if you just say to the person, I notice that there's an incongruency here. And if they meet you head on and talk about it with you, really good sign. If it's somebody being dishonest and they're, being manipulative and trying to do some gaslighting, then you'll say, no. So then this is an interesting piece. People often say to me, "Oh, I'm in a relationship and there were so many red flags. Why didn't I pay attention to them?" Well, welcome to life, right? We all do that. We get a little red flag and we think, "Oh, it's just in my head," or, "Oh, it's my imagination," or, "I want to be liked, so I'm not going to say anything." Or once we get into a relationship really full on, things will get better. Or another one, "I will fix this person. They will change for me." So we give ourselves all of these reasons not to pay attention to our red flags. And often we're doing it unconsciously. We're not even having these conversations with ourselves. Sometimes we just think, "Oh my goodness, this person is such a great catch. They're so pretty or handsome or wealthy or smart. I am not going to pay attention to any of my red flags because I'm just going to have so much fun in this relationship." And that's our humanity coming through. And so it's important for us as we move into healthy relationships to
Mhm.
just start journaling our red flags and paying attention to them so that we can take the serious ones seriously, weed out the ones that are our stuff that we need to give attention to. And the third one, as I said before, is sometimes they're a combination of our stuff and the other person's stuff.
I love that. That's super useful. And also, since reading your book, I definitely have tried to practice journaling in that way too. And it's been just really nice to set aside that time to continued growth in that way, and also making sure that I'm being honest with myself in what I'm paying attention to. And also, even if people haven't struggled with identifying or dealing with red flags in the past, if they read your book now for the future, they'll be able to know kind of how to deal with that. So thank you very much for sharing that one. And do you have a third mindset shift that you'd like to share with us?
Yes. Which one? I like this one. There's so many I like, but I'll share number 11 because it really touches me. Mindset shift 11. Our scars can be our greatest treasures. The very things we hide from others are sometimes the very things that make us the most precious and lovable. The scars we strive so hard to conceal can be reminders of the wounds that we have worked so hard to understand and heal. These healed or healing wounds and the resulting scars can be among our finest treasures. They needn't be embarrassments, for they can signify how much we have learned, how much we have loved, and how far we have come. And I think it's so important as we move into our relationships, whether they're new ones or, long-standing ones. We all have scars because we've been on the planet and we've known at least one or two hurts. Many of us have known a lot more than one or two hurts, right? And sometimes, I was just working with somebody who was telling me about the person she's dating who is having panic attacks, and how the panic attacks are coming up because he's starting to really love and feel, and how her prior history of panic attacks is helping her connect with him and help him not feel broken or as broken. So that's a perfect example of something that she might not have shared her history of panic attacks with him, but of course she has because she's a really honest person. So here was an example of somebody who, I don't know that she took pride in her wounds, but she was okay with it. She knew, I've been through these panic attacks. I know how to handle them. I use my lavender, I use my breathing, I use my calming exercises. And here is this person she's dating who's been through quite a lot, and she is helping him. So what she may have considered, in fact, when I first started working with her, she was so embarrassed about her panic attacks, so embarrassed about her anxiety. And now it's just, of course, it's gotten a lot better, but you can see how in this case, the perfect example of how our scars, our owies, if we don't hide them, but we offer them when it's appropriate and safe in a
Mhm.
relationship, how it can really help somebody understand us and help our inner selves grow while also helping the other person. And it just builds a bond of trust. And even if the person you're dating has never had a panic attack, if they can't accept that part of you and don't like you with all your scars and your wounds and your strengths and your weaknesses, then they're not going to be a good fit.
Right. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. What a nice and special connection that they share for them to be able to
Mm.
show that part of themselves to each other. That's beautiful. Um, I guess now, so if you don't mind going back to maybe, let's see, I guess we haven't quite touched upon attachment yet, and we did have a question on attachment, what it is, and sort of how it impacts dating,
Okay.
and how people can be aware of what their attachment is as well.
Oh, it's such a good question. So bear with me as I explain it with the background it deserves. It will be a short background, but it deserves background. When we are born, we form an attachment to the caregiver in our life or caregivers. Generally, it's considered mom, but you may have dad as your primary caregiver, grandma, grandpa, who knows, whoever's most present in your life. And there are two types of attachment. There's secure attachment, one type, and then there's insecure attachment. So two types of attachment formed generally in the first 12 months of life. So secure attachment means that your caregiver was attuned to you. Your caregiver slowed down, saw who you were, attended to your needs in what we call a good enough way. because no caregiver, no matter how good they are, is going to be 100% attuned to a child's needs. So what it's called good enough parenting. And this goes back to research done in the 40s and 50s by Winnicott and Ainsworth, wonderful people. And it's the type, one of the branches of psychology that has incredible long-term research. So those who are securely attached tend to move through life in a way that allows them to connect safely and securely with safe, secure people, right? So they will be able to have generally high emotional awareness. They will feel safe in safe relationships. They will generally not meet up with somebody who is insecurely attached, although it happens, but there's generally kind of that magnet draw, secure to secure. So that's that. Now, when you look at insecure attachment, there are three types of insecure attachment. And the attachment styles are one type in childhood,
Mhm.
and then in adulthood, they're given different names. So I'll use the ones for adulthood. So in adulthood, we have the anxious attachment, anxious preoccupied. Sometimes you hear it called anxious preoccupied. You also have dismissive, which of course is a type of avoidant, insecure attachment. And then you have what's often called mixed attachment or disorganized. And so, how those show up is the anxious, preoccupied person will often ruminate, on the relationship. Am I loved? Am I not loved? Am I safe? Am I not safe? Am I doing it right? So there's a lot of combustibility there in the anxious attachment because it's coming from a place of fear, a place of not feeling safe. Goes back to childhood, right? So you learn in childhood that, mom, dad, they're not really present. They may love me, they may not love me. Things aren't adding up. I'm walking on eggshells. I'm not safe. Okay. So that's that type of anxious, preoccupied, insecure attachment. So then if we look at the next type of insecure attachment, and it's the dismissive attachment. And this is also an avoidance style. So dismissive attachment is almost like the person is present, but they're not present. They really don't value relationships. They want to keep people at a distance, and they tend to not bond very well with anyone. They tend to be very up in their heads, not a lot of emotional awareness, and they like to be on separate paths with someone because they don't want to need anyone. Because in childhood, their parents generally were dismissive with them. There was always someone, something else more important than the child. So the child learns that growing up. Then we have the third type, the mixed style, the disorganized style. That comes from childhood where the parent was present, not present, you know, doing something else, just this disorganized style that makes the child say, wow, I'm going to avoid being attached. This is just too crazy for me. I don't know. So you might think this sounds a lot like the anxious, but the anxious person wants to attach. The disorganized person wants but doesn't want, wants but doesn't want, but really they tend to go with the I don't want to attach. So that's how the styles, manifest in life. What's important to know is that the way that these styles manifest can be changed. When you are in relationship with someone who shows up, so for example, if you have a secure person matched with an insecure person who is anxious, that anxious person can earn, we call it earned secure attachment, can earn a secure attachment over time because they learn, oh, this person's safe. But I want to make it clear that it's not the burden of the securely attached person to go and fix everyone in the world. Their job is just to, stay centered, stay strong, and move forward. And you can also have people who have, let's say you take somebody who's an insecure attachment style and another person with an insecure attachment style. Their work would be not to strangle each other with attachment, right? And their work, if they both learn to have a little more healthy autonomy and a little more healthy interdependence instead
Mhm.
of being, hyper independent or, enmeshed, then they could learn over time. They'd have to give it a lot of effort, but they could earn secure attachment. So that's how it works. And it's one of the things that really causes a lot of havoc in interpersonal relationships because you will get people who are not securely attached. That's a big percentage of the population does not have a secure attachment. And so you will find that a lot of the dynamics that are going on underneath the relationship that are causing problems are the result of the insecure attachment issues.
That's super interesting. And I think being able to identify that, so thank you for sharing too, because hopefully people who are watching will find a lot of use in that and identifying that in themselves if they have those patterns. But also, I think your book is wonderful because if they go through it and they're able to set goals and see patterns in their own dating lives, then they'll be able to figure out, okay, how can I get from point A to point B of where I want to be and how I want to be showing up.
And I think it's such a good point, Kate, because it's one of the reasons I wrote Date Smart the way I did with all of the journal prompts in it and everything. Because when we slow down, I call it following the breadcrumbs,
Mhm.
we have to become aware of our patterns and we're not judging ourselves or judging our parents. This isn't about judging anyone. It's simply about saying, oh, this is what happened. What didn't work for me? And okay, I'll let go of that. I'll learn the lesson and I'll do more of what does work for me. So it's not some people that, oh, I don't want to talk badly about my mom and dad. No one had perfect parents, some were less perfect than others. But it's important just to be able to slow down and follow the breadcrumbs of your life so that you can, again, do more of what works for you that makes you feel strong, healthy, secure, and less of what works for you. I'll give you an example. Sometimes you can imagine this, two partners,
Mhm.
one who is insecurely attached. Who do you imagine is the worst person for this? I'm sorry, an anxious attachment, insecure attachment, anxious attachment matches up with someone who is dismissive.
Right.
Oh my goodness, worst dynamic in the world. Here's why. The anxious person's like, love me, love me, love me. Dismissive person's over here again. I don't need anybody. I'm the lone wolf, right? And then this person's like, hey, see me, help me, pay attention to me. And this person's going, attachment. And they're off, and this person's chasing. Oh my goodness. And then the anxious person feels worse. The dismissive person goes, see, that's why relationships are bad. You get these pesky people trying to hound you. And so then it exacerbates each person's attachment wound. So in this case, right, the work for the anxious person is slow it down, breathe, do your work, know you'll be safe and secure with or without this person. And this person's work would be to not run and to show up and learn to connect with this person. It can be done. It takes a lot of work, but it can be done.
Well, and that's huge to be able to know too that people can work on it and it's not just a give up and run like you said too. Even for the non-dismissive partner, for the anxious partner too, it's good that it's possible to become more and more secure. Did you say earn secure
It's
attachment?
called earned secure attachment. And it's one of the most beautiful elements of relationships that if we are conscious, if we pay attention to what we're doing, not that we ever get it perfectly right, but it's if we are intentional, we heal our wounds and we heal the other person's wounds within that relationship. So, in a way, it's like this magic if you can take these two people who are so disparate, right? So different. And if they both become conscious, oh, I'm scaring this person by chasing them and scaring myself. And this person goes, oh, I'm scaring this person by running away and I'm scaring myself. If I can just show up and learn to have a back and forth and communicate, I could actually have another person in my life where we connect. And then I can be okay separate, and then we can connect again. So I think it's just magical how we can use our wounds to work for us.
That's incredible. And again, just so beautiful to be able to be vulnerable and work on yourself and realize what you need and express it. And all the things that we've talked about today kind of link back to this. And I think your book, again, I'll keep throwing out shameless promotions for it because I do truly, truly believe in it. But I know that the mindset shifts that you've included in all of the areas that you've given people prompts to reflect, it really does make dating intentionally a practice and dating smart a practice that I know I and all of the other people who do read the book will carry with them for the rest of their lives. So it really is just the beginning to a beautiful journey. And I'm so grateful that you've taken the time today, but then also you've taken the time to work with us at Familius to put it out into the world.
Thank you. I am with you. I really believe in the book because in my private practice or group work, I reach one person at a time or a group at a time. And books like Date Smart that give you the opportunity. I love self-help books, but I really love self-help books that give self-work because then you can do work in addition to therapy, or if you don't have access to therapy, it's a type of therapy you can do, bibliotherapy. But I do believe that we all have the power to change our lives for the better when we slow down and have a template. And that's what Date Smart is. It's a template for loving fearlessly and transforming not just your dating relationships. It's about transforming the most important relationship, which is the one you have with yourself, and then everything else will shift from there.
Okay, well, thank you again. Is there anything else that you wanted to share, either from the book or in
Let's see
general
if
that
there's one more mindset shift. I just am
Sure.
such a fan of them. I really like number 10. Such a basic one. We all have the same need to feel loved, safe, respected, and seen. As unique as each person may be, we all very much have this are the same on some basic levels, including the profound truth that we all need to feel loved, safe, respected, and seen. These are primitive but extremely important parts of being human. All of these factors give us the much needed sense of stability. It's comforting to know that we all have these same core needs. And that often happens in the dating world where people are told they're too insecure, or they're too this or too that. But we all, if we're being honest with ourselves, we all have those same basic needs. We want to be seen, we want to be loved, we want to be respected, we want to be valued. And when we meet someone who looks in our eyes and sees us, and we see them, to me, that is one of the most important forms of love.
Yeah, and a great part of the human experience too. Love is so beautiful. So I feel like I've used that word so many times today, but all of the secure relationship things that you've talked about today and all of the areas that people can grow to in the types of relationships that you're helping readers cultivate. Beautiful really is a great word to describe that. So thank you so much for sharing. And the book can be found anywhere books are sold, but then also directly from familius.com. So we'll link back to that. And then if readers want to find you or read more about your articles or your other books, you also have a really beautiful website as well, or they can follow you on social media. So can you remind me of your Instagram handle, please?
Okay, Instagram, everything is Dr. Carla Manly. My website, Dr. Carla Manly, DrCarla Manly, Manly. Same on Instagram, Dr. Carla Manly, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Dr. Carla Manly.
If you liked this webinar, go to familius.com for books, articles, and more content that will help your family be happy. Be sure to sign up for the Familius Habit Hub newsletter and be alerted when new webinars go live, because every family deserves to be happy.